What happens usually after a spectacular killing, there is this hope that, quote, justice will be served. And oftentimes this idea of justice is conflated with this idea of a conviction, that if we can just get a conviction, then somehow we're able to dredge up justice for the dead. But unfortunately, relying on the same courts which give more power to police, which give power to people to carry arms in the first place, give power to people who are creating violence in the streets. What happens is that we're then relying on that particular system to deliver a result that it's incapable of delivering, right? It's incapable of creating a level of accountability, because that's not what it was intended to do. It was intended to protect the violent interests of people who created the court system. Why do we give the court so much power to determine this one particular outcome? And how does that rob our communities of actually building just societies that can prevent this from happening in the first place? Before Ahmaud Arbery was followed and killed years ago, we had George Zimmerman who did that to Trayvon Martin. When George Zimmerman was found not guilty, there was a deep sense of, what is this going to mean? Are Black people going to be safe? Are Black kids going to be safe? And then just literally later that year, we have Michael Dunn, who's on trial for killing Jordan Davis. We have this white man who killed a Black teenager over playing loud rap music. And then he's found guilty. He's going to be in prison for the rest of his life. And so Michael Dunn was sent to prison. It didn't stop those three white men from chasing Ahmaud Arbery. It didn't stop them from calling him the N-word. It didn't stop them from, pulling out a gun on him and killing him. And so what's unfortunate is that our court system is not intended to actually deliver any semblance of true justice. What it does do is give people some incoherent sets of opportunities to get relief, to get punishment, to get revenge, but we cannot call that justice. If justice is only favorable when we want it, we know that we're going to keep losing if we keep relying on the court to try to provide it. It's going to take much more. It's going to take everyday people pushing back on the gun lobby, pushing back on NRA, pushing back on the ideas of militias, how they're currently constituted. It's going to be fighting against banning critical race theory education and fighting for racial justice education in our schools. It's going to take so much more to reduce the amount of encounters between policing, between white vigilantes and white accomplices, and people of color who are literally just trying to run, or white men in Wisconsin. If we want to stop the Kyle Rittenhouses, ironically in this particular situation, we have to stop police violence, right? We have to stop police killings and shootings from inspiring white people to go and defend the police power to kill others. How do we intervene and make sure that people have resources, people can have healthier conversations, that people can, get what they need when they're in disputes, when they're in disagreements, when they're in fights, that doesn't lead to deadly consequences when the police show up, right? So we have to figure out how to do that. We need progressive white people and progressive white organizations to do alternative recruitment for young white men who are being sought out by militias and by white supremacist groups. Like right now, if you're a young white man and you're listening to all of this racial justice and Black Lives Matter, and especially if you're poor, you're working class, and you feel like you've been ostracized or you've been marginalized or you haven't benefited from what these people have called white privilege, and now someone knocks on your door or someone sends you an email or there's a Facebook group saying, hey, we have space for you at this white supremacist organization. We have a brotherhood. We have something you can be a part of. If we don't have white progressives fighting against that culture, doing recruitment, making interventions, then we're going to keep losing people to those organizations whose doors are always open. We need people to be proactive and fight offensively to pull young white people out of those spaces and into more racial justice, multiracial organizations. You can start that by finding out, who else is interested around you, who else is already doing that work. what can you learn? Who can you read with? Who can you understand these issues with better, to push yourself to be curious about where to start, and then connecting with other people who is doing this work in other parts of the country that you can learn from, that you can model, and then ask them, hey, I want to create a chapter where I am in my school, in my place of worship, in my employment. I want to figure out how to fight this fight too. Because if people don't get offline and stop trying to have the conversations just by tweeting or just by watching, a story really quickly, well, you're not going to actually eradicate white supremacy. One thing my grandmother says is that the day you refuse to keep learning is the day you choose to die. And so I will hope that people choose to live.